Hi again, welcome back. This is the second part for session 8. So let's dive into session 8. We've learned about the build, borrow, buy model. So here you have three options. Which option do you think most risky or least risky? Well, people might have a different opinion, but in general, many researchers say that buy option is the most risky corporate strategy. Why? The buy option, I mean mergers and acquisitions, is considered most risky. Why? Well, there are some several reasons. Once you buy a company, it's really hard for you to get it back. I mean, it's almost irreversible. Well, you can reverse it, you can resell it, but it's gonna cost you a lot. And also, when you buy a company, you usually pay a lot more than the real value of the firm you buy. And it is called the acquisition premiums. And obviously, there will be some problems between the two companies. There might be culture clash or other types of integration issues. So that's why M&A is considered quite risky. And that is why alliances are getting more popularity these days. Alliances are not that risky compared to mergers and acquisitions. And also, it can bring a lot of benefits. For instance, you can create some values with your partner. Also, I mean, it's not that costly. I mean, you don't have to pay a lot to have some collaboration with a company. And that's why many companies are thinking alliances as an alternative to mergers and acquisitions. You can see a lot of benefits of alliances, and you can find some of them from our textbook. However, it does not necessarily mean that alliances are always good. Obviously not. Sometimes alliances do not work as you expect, particularly if you do not have a trustworthy partner. It's like a team project. Your partner may ask you to give some information, but they might resist giving some information to you. I mean, your partner can play in a little opportunistic way, and this is a really bad story for you. And obviously, there might be different incentives between you and partner for collaboration. Your partner might not work hard, they might just exploit you to maximize their interest. In this case, alliances can bring more risk than benefits. So it's really important to have a good partner or trustworthy partner to make your alliances better. So there are three types of strategic alliances. The first one is non-equity alliances. It involves low commitment, low trust, and low cost. A good thing about non-equity alliances is that you can leave anytime you want if you do not trust your partner. But the downside of these alliances is that there is little trust between you and your partner organization that might make your partner organization not to work with you very hard because they have low incentive. But the last two are different, both of which are involved in high commitment and high trust. If you have a partial ownership of your partner organization, let's say I have 5% ownership of my partner organization, it can be called equity based alliances. And it enables your partner organizations to work hard with you because you are a part of your partner organization's owner. It increases more commitment and trust, but obviously more cost here. That means it may be hard for you to get out of the alliances even if you do not like your partner because you're always you already committed too much in this partner. Joint venture is a special form. This is again related to high commitment and high trust, but instead of having some partial ownership, you and your partner organization can create one standalone organization, one independent entity, and you and your partner can work together through this organization. So let's take a look at one example for the quiz. Please read the description. What is the answer? The answer should be B because one company owns a partial ownership of another company, as you can see in the third sentence. So this alliance is based on ownership, and that's why the answer should be B. What about this one? I think you can easily find the answer. The answer should be C, right? Because two or more firms create independent company to work together. It is the definition of joint venture, so the answer should be C here. So previously I highlighted the risk of M&As. M&As are not silver bullet. It can create a lot of problems. You should be very careful, and you can see a lot of the risk of M&As in our textbook. So please read relevant chapter to understand the risk of mergers and acquisitions. So one of the biggest risk of mergers and acquisitions is sometimes you pay a lot for a target company, much more than the real value of the target company, and it is called acquisitions premiums. Uh, if you're sold at high value, that's good because you can get a lot of money and you can enjoy your life. But if you're a buyer, if you're acquiring company that pays a lot to buy one company, it could be a really big burden financially. And it's gonna erode your value in the long run. And that's the negative side of mergers and acquisitions. But you know what? M&As are were quite popular in the US over the last 2 or 3 decades, despite the risk of M&As. You can see some sort of overall upward trend. There was a decline just after financial crisis, but you can see increasing trend in terms of numbers or size of mergers and acquisitions in the US. Not only in the US, but also in other European countries. The Netherlands, Germany, or other Asian countries, they're all love, I mean, big companies in these countries love M&As, and you can see increasing number and increasing value of M&As here. And the beer industry is a great example. Here we have bunch of different beer brands, probably more than hundreds. But you know what? All these brands are controlled by just four companies all over the world, just four. And here's the map for four major beer companies in the world. They become larger and larger through mergers and acquisitions. Let's take a look at AB InBev. I think this is Brazilian beer company. Over the last 8 years, they merged all big beer companies in different countries or different places. See how many companies did they acquire? And the same story goes to the pharmaceutical industry in the US. Now we have only several number of really, really big companies in the pharma industry. And airline industry has the same story. All companies love large mergers and acquisitions. Probably one of the largest scale M&As would be the acquisitions between Monsanto and Bayer. Monsanto was number one crop company in the US, and Bayer is number one in European countries. They agreed to be merged, and now they became a really, really one monopoly company all over the world. But look at the Bayer's stock prices after the acquisitions of Monsanto. Well, it didn't do well. They had a lot of decline in stock prices just after the announcement of this merger and acquisition. So again, this is consistent with the risk of M&As. Usually, acquiring companies suffer a lot after buying a company. But why do they continue buying some companies even though they know that it could harm their financial value? Well, I mean, M&As is really easy way to go into new market. You don't have to worry about complicated issues when you go into a new market. Once you buy a company, you can resolve many problems in just one way, one simple way. It's very expedient, convenient corporate strategy, and that's why big companies love M&As despite the risk of it. And other reasons would be related to, those, as you can see here. It might be bad financially after mergers and acquisitions, but you can increase your market power and it might be good as a really long-term strategy. And also you can get a lot of access to new markets or new customers. Again, M&A is really easy, convenient, and expedient way to go into a new market. The last one is really interesting. You can use M&As to kill your competitors. Many big companies, I mean even IT companies, they use M&As to kill their potential competitors. So let's take a look at some examples. One of the most popular online map would be Google Map, right? And probably second most popular one is Waze. We love Google Map and Waze. And Google was so afraid of the emergence of this small company, Waze. So you know what Google did? They just bought it. They just merged this company with a lot of money. And the same logic here in Facebook. Facebook itself was declining, and there was a new competitor called Instagram. These days, young people they love Instagram much more than Facebook. So Facebook was really concerned about this company, and you know what Mark Zuckerberg and his executive did, right? They just bought Instagram to kill, the Facebook competitors. So, many IT companies, they're just looking around, they're trying to find some potential competitors. And if they think these new companies could be a new threat to them, they just buy it. And it really decreases the level of competition in the industries. And that's why they can maintain their dominance here. And M&As might not necessarily be driven by value calculation. It might be driven by the CEO's personal interest. Um, from the CEO's perspective, what is most important is his or her salary. So to maximize his salary, he can do M&As because uh, usually CEO salary is proportional to the size of company. So if they can increase their company size by M&As, that means that they're more likely to get high salaries. So this is for a typical issue of principal agent problem. So principal here is a company agent and CEO. From the company's perspective, M&A is not that good. It could harm the value. But from the agent's perspective, CEO's personal perspective, M&A is good because it could increase his or her salary. Um, so sometimes M&As are done by executives or the CEO's personal interest, and this is not rational at all. I mean, the point here is M&As sometimes they're done by some um, bad motives, as you can see here. And this is another slide to tell the principal agent problem in the context of mergers and acquisitions. Managers or CEOs, they have incentives to acquire to increase their interest. And sometimes they have hubris. They believe that they can make M&A successful even though they know that it is not always true. They believe that there are exceptions to this rule. Sometimes, well, they're such a narrow focus belief drives them to do more M&As. Um, so this is a quick summary of mergers and acquisitions. Yes, obviously M&As have some benefits, as you can see here. But here in this slide, I really highlight the risk of M&As. M&As are related to acquisition premiums, and many acquiring companies lose their value after mergers and acquisitions. But many companies use this tool a lot for various reasons, as you can see previously. And this is my short conclusion. And your next question would be, hey, I mean, M&A is not always bad, right? I mean, there should be some good M&As. So, I mean, please tell us what is a good condition. I mean, what is a condition for good M&As? Which M&A is good and which M&A is bad? So I'll give you some answers to this question. So these are some examples of failed M&As. Can you find something in common here? Yeah, I mean, if you look at the two companies, the similarity between two is quite low. I mean, in general, they are located in different industries. And actually, it reminds me or us of the issue that we've learned in the previous lecture. I mean, again, identity gap. In the chapter 6 or diversification section, I highlight again and again that going into absolutely new market can be really risky, uh, particularly when the new market's identity is quite different from your identity, and it is called identity gap and identity conflict. An identity gap can be explained by the inverted U shape between the level of diversification and performance, right? And today we learned about the risk of M&A. Yeah, M&A can be a good corporate strategy, but it has a lot of risk. So let's combine both of them. We know that unrelated diversification is riskier than related diversification. Also, M&A can be riskier than alliances and build option. I mean, doing your own business, right? So what if we combine both of them, unrelated diversification with M&As? Do you think it's a good idea or do you think it's a really bad idea? I'm sure you know the answer. Well, let's take a look at two examples done by Microsoft over the last 10 years. Which one is a success and which one is a failure? Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn is a great M&A, but buying a Nokia is a really bad idea. Why buying a Nokia was a really bad idea? Because it's M&A for unrelated diversification, right? Microsoft is basically a software company. Nokia is manufacturer. This is hardware company. So Microsoft went into a new market whose identity is different from the company's identity, unrelated diversification, and also they used mergers and acquisitions. It's quite hard to reverse it. And that's why we have such bad consequence here. Microsoft wasted more than $8 billion for Nokia. They resold it, but really at low value. Another great two contrast here: Google, YouTube, Google, Motorola. Which one is good? Which one is bad? Well, YouTube is really big, huge success, but buying a Motorola is really terrible decision making. Why? Again, Motorola is different from Google. Motorola is a manufacturing company, hardware company, but Google is purely based on online system. But they paid more than $12.5 billion for these companies. And you know the consequence, right? Yeah, Google wasted a lot of money, almost like $10 billion. This is really huge. And if you look at all successful M&As, not all, but many successful M&As, um, they are mostly involved in related diversification. So M&A can be less risky if you use M&A for the same industry, but like Google's Motorola M&A or the Microsoft Nokia M&A, unrelated diversification with M&A can be really risky. Okay, and here's my last part. You might imagine the combination of alliances and M&As, right? We know that M&A is risky. And alliances, sometimes it has some problems, right? You may not trust your partner organization. So if you can combine them, you might find the optimal solution to go into a new market. And the combination of alliances and mergers and acquisitions is called the real option strategy. this is the definition of real option strategy. So before you buy a company, you first do alliances because you really need the time and information to know the real value of your partner organization. So you spend some time with partner organization in the form of alliances, and after spending some time, you can decide whether you would buy a company, I mean target company or not. So you use alliances first, and after some time, you can decide whether you buy the company or not. Disney Pixar is a great example of real option. Disney had some kind of relationship with Pixar even in 1991. They had a really long history. And Disney spent some time, they worked with Pixar's people. And then after spending some time, the Disney decided to buy this company because they knew the real value of this organization. And another great example is Fiat Chrysler, Sergio Marchionne. Unfortunately, he has passed away, but he was remembered as one of the best CEOs in the automobile industry. And here you can see a short clip. Yeah, Fiat did real option like Disney did. Uh, After financial crisis, Chrysler was on the market, but Fiat was not big enough to buy this company. What Fiat did was the company had a relationship with Chrysler. They had some alliances, and after spending some time, after doing some collaboration with Chrysler, Fiat finally decided to acquire this uh, the company. So again, this is really a good example of real option strategy. And Fiat Chrysler is really doing okay. They're doing fine, and you can see a lot of benefits of alliances. And one of the reasons why Fiat and the Chrysler is doing well is related to the combination of their resources. It is called complementarities of resources between these two companies. So Fiat was really famous for small cars. Chrysler was known for mid-size or large cars. So they're in the same industry, but they have a different level of strength or weakness in each segment. And that's why they could create more synergies through real option or M&As because they can complement each other. And that's, I think, one of the main reasons why this combination works well. And here is a final summary of this session. We learned about build, borrow, buy model. This model can tell us under which condition we should use build option, borrow option, or buy option. And well, we know the benefits of mergers and acquisitions, but I really highlight the risk of it. So companies should be careful when they buy a company, particularly when they buy a big company, because it could be really financially not desirable. And unrelated diversifications with M&As, it's not a good idea. And the real option strategy can mitigate the risk of mergers and acquisitions, and asset complementarities or resource complementarities might be a reason why the last two examples, I mean Disney, Pixar, and Fiat, Chrysler, did really well. That's it.